Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind Driving Maul, your best place rugby predictions and opinion, and we're going to be talking Rugby World Cup, and a bit more Rugby World Cup. Let's be honest, because that's on the horizon. And whilst there are things like the NRC and the top 14 and the actually the Currie Cup's finished now, the Mitre 10 Cup going on. No one's really paying attention apart from me. I will be at 2 Mitre 10 Cup games this weekend and 2 Farrow Palmer Cup games, but I know John won't be. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, in yourself.
Very good, thank you. Very good. So, actually, on that note, before we sort of get into sort of discussing all of these, each of the pools, each of the teams, with Currie Cup's finished now. It was over and done with very, very quickly. One of the things that Steve Hansen has said is that when they said, "Do you have an injury list replacements?" He said, "No, everyone who's playing Mitre 10 Cup because they've got to be match fit." Do you think that the South Africans have missed a trick here by not running a longer Currie Cup that play home and away in the round robin, so that their reserve players were actually getting some match practice?
Yeah, I do. I think it was well planned by the All Black management, because certainly they've planned this from some years out. And everything, remember, in New Zealand rugby revolves around making the All Blacks great. That's the number one goal. So let's not be surprised that they have the most advantageous planning when it comes to how they can support the All Blacks. I do think they missed a trick there. I do think they'll benefit from the longer rest, because we're in September and Currie Cup is over. And for those who are playing Super Rugby, that means that for the first time in I don't know how many years, they will have a full off season. So they'll start coming back. So they'll have at least 2.5 months off. Those players that are playing Super Rugby. There'll be a number of players that will be playing Pro 14 in the Cheetah squad and in the Kings. And there are some players that are also going to be playing a bit of rugby in Japan or other leagues, that are players that have been loaned to, for instance, Sale. So there will be some players.
But the Japan Top League doesn't kick off until the new year, because they've moved it to they've yet again Japan have changed when it runs, but to accommodate Rugby World Cup.
Rugby World Cup. So there'll be a group of players in South Africa who will have a 2.5 month off season, because I think they'll start again in December, doing walkthroughs and starting working on game plans and stuff, and fitness, etc. So, from that perspective, they'll probably be the team when it comes to Super Rugby next year, at least the country that is most ready, because they'll have a proper decent off season.
They will. We must remember that the Super Rugby starts at the end of January this next year, so earlier than before. So we've seen players going back at the beginning of December previously, so they might even be going back mid-November. But as you said, I think what crazy that mid and end of January start for Super Rugby.
Madness. It's mad. It's like saying, can you imagine rugby season in England starting on the 31st of July?
It is getting,
That's the equivalent.
It's getting earlier and earlier. This is now because there isn't a break in June, but the summer tour, as it's known in the UK, or the mid-year tour, will happen in July. So previously, what's happened is they've taken a break for June. They've come back, had 3 rounds of rugby plus 3 rounds of playoffs, so 6 rounds of rugby post June.
Yes.
They're having to squeeze that all in before July. So yes, sure, they get 4 weeks extra there, but they had to add an extra 2 weeks at the beginning as well. So yes. But David, reason they don't want to break for June tests. Remember, it's July tests from next year, which will be interesting.
Yes. Well, it's certainly better to have no break. It's better for the competition.
Absolutely.
And they're reducing the number of teams, so you don't have this weird loss of interest, and you have a steady build up. It all makes 100% sense.
Well, remember the reduction in teams doesn't happen next year; it's the year after.
Is it the year after?
Yeah.
Okay.
So next year is still the same format as we have this year. The year after they will
Okay.
get rid of teams and then I think they cut 2 weeks off the tournament, so it's
Okay.
shorter, and hence they won't have to start quite so early to fit it in before July.
What do they do if these teams that they're cutting do well? I'm going to root for them big time.
Well, there's only
The
one
team,
team, and that's Sunwolves.
only one team.
Yep.
I just absolutely, I will root for them gangbusters. Would like nothing more than for them to make the final, except maybe win it. That'd be awesome.
Wow, if the Sunwolves, yeah, but let's be honest, the Sunwolves won't, unfortunately. But you're right, it would be fantastic for the Sunwolves to go all the way.
How many seasons they've been playing, Paul?
Oh,
4?
trying to think about it. I think 4, yes.
4. Okay. First 3 seasons, 96, 97, 98 of Super Rugby, the Crusaders were garbage.
Yep.
Right? And everybody goes, the Sunwolves. The Crusaders were the easy beats. And the Highlanders. They were terrible. And then they got it together and they understood the competition and the way they go. So Argentina, the Jaguares been in the competition 7 years, right?
No, the Jaguares and Sunwolves started at the same time, I think. So they've both
Same
been in
time.
4 years. So, yeah, the Jaguares have done very well in their 4 years to have got to the final. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Anyway, this is my the whole structure of world rugby is just madness, right? The fact that we don't have alignment between northern and southern hemispheres.
I promise you, a full hour-long show post Rugby World Cup with you and Herman. We'll spend a whole hour talking about the structure of that.
Okay, so I will ask you to prepare yourself as an Englishman wearing an English. No wonder you're drinking beer. Got an English rugby jersey on. Look at that. You need all the help.
I'm in the mood for the Rugby World Cup. You see, I'm getting all Rugby World Cup fever.
You see that you're going to need as much alcohol as you can get in the next 6 weeks as an English supporter. So, I mean, you can answer me as an Englishman, born and raised in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yep.
You can answer 2 questions: why rugby wants to go up against soccer, football,
yep,
in winter rather than go up against cricket, let's say. And why rugby wants to be played in winter at those clubs, on those fields, with the rain, no matter how good the fields are set up, as opposed to playing rugby in those long, gorgeous summer evenings where the sun goes down at 11 or 11:30, and you can have not just at the clubs that are at Premiership level, but all the way through the structure of rugby in England and Ireland and Wales and Scotland. All through that, you can have all the clubs, the local clubs can be there, families can be there, come to practice, beautiful, twilights, while they want to play in the cold and the mud, when they could play in the summer.
Okay, those are two questions I will be ready to answer post Rugby World Cup. Awesome. Absolutely.
Awesome.
So, before we do get on to Rugby World Cup, though, and Ollie Brown has got a question in the chat. Q&A tonight. We'll also run through the teams as well, folks. So feel free to put questions in the live chat. But before we get on to that, one of the breaking news stories that has happened over the last week is Gareth Thomas has come out and said that he is HIV positive, so all the support for him. Congratulations! Well done for having the nerve or the strength to come out and talk about it. And we're very sorry that he has obviously got this disease. And wish him all the best with it. One thing I would say, I guess my only other point would be that it's a shame that he was forced to, or that the people were threatening to mention this and put it out there. And in some ways, he was semi-forced to come out and tell people on his terms. But apart from that, all our best thoughts with him. And look, it's a disease like any other. You can still shake hands, etc. So with people, look, it doesn't. There's no reason to treat him any different than you would anyone else, basically.
Yeah, I agree with you, 100%.
So So this weekend, as you said, you're going to be watching from Fiji versus Australia on Saturday.
Oh, yes. It's going to be a splurge of rugby. It's going to be a plethora, an orgy of rugger. I don't know how to describe three.
I'm scared now. I'm going round to John's house to watch rugby with him and his friends. An orgy of rugby. Wow, this is getting scary.
Yeah. I don't know how to describe three potentially exciting games in a row. Okay, which is what we've got. Very much so.
It is. It is clearly Super Saturday.
Yes.
This, and in theory, this could be the most exciting day of rugby in the entire tournament.
There's one other Saturday coming up, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that has a similar exciting lineup. 3 really good games, strong games. But this is definitely one that stands out because there certainly is the potential for upsets here. I don't think maybe so much with Fiji and Australia. Although, you just never know with Fiji. They're not as mercurial as the French, but they certainly have the potential to give Australia a fright or to give, basically it's Australia's second team playing Australia's first team, right?
Oh, now.
Isn't that the case?
What?
Isn't it all the... No, Australia is they take all the best players they can get from Fiji, play for Australia, right? And then sprinkle in among them a few Tongans and a few Maori, and then have a couple of token white boy selections, and then they play Fiji B on Saturday.
Okay. Well, anyway, Ollie Brown asks us whether Fiji have a realistic chance of knocking out Australia or Wales. They have a realistic chance of beating Australia. If you'd asked me in November, I would say they'd have basically an evens chance of beating Australia because Fiji beat France back in November. Australia were looking particularly poor. Since then,
they were.
Australia have looked like they've got their stuff together in the last couple of months. And Fiji haven't looked as dangerous themselves. So it's going to be interesting. But I don't think there will be there'll be a problem there. David, you're quite right. There are no. I can't think of a Maori that is in the Wallabies.
Whoa. Wait, I'll come up with it.
You'll come up with it, will you? I've got the squad. I'd like me to go through each player. We can.
Facts. Don't let facts get in the way of a good story.
Facts get in the way of fun. Okay, there we go. So that's that piece. Looking at, I'm trying to find that other Saturday because obviously we've got this Saturday which we've just talked about. The following Saturday has Argentina, Tonga, Japan, Ireland, and then South Africa, Namibia.
No, it's not that one.
It's not that one. The one after that we have Australia, Uruguay, England, Argentina, and Japan, Samoa.
That could be spicy.
And then, Australia, Uruguay, Australia are going to win that one quite comfortably.
But the second two could be spicy.
And then the final Saturday is New Zealand, Italy, England, France, Ireland, Samoa.
Oh, that could also be spicy.
A couple of spicy ones there, but again...
Not New Zealand, Italy, but that could be spicy.
So, but I don't think there's 3 games as good as the 3 we've got this Saturday.
I don't.
There are some good, there are some good couple of matchups, but not 3.
I agree with you.
So, let's have a look at Pool A then. Ireland, Scotland, Japan, Russia, and I've gone blank with the last one. That's appalling.
Russia.
Sorry? Russia and Samoa. Sorry, there you go. Samoa's the last one. I guess there's 2 battles going on here. You've got the battle for first and second, which, I mean, Ireland, I think we're all expecting Ireland to top the group, with Scotland or Japan looking with a shout that second. But that third place is also very important, folks, in all of these pools, because that gets you automatic qualification for the Rugby World Cup in France. So Samoa will be looking at seeing if they can beat. Well, we know Russia are going to get beaten by everyone here. Let's be honest, because I mean they've lost to Jersey and Connacht recently.
Yes.
But if Samoa can turn over Japan, then they've got a chance of getting automatic qualification for next year. So some of those games you that think, well, hey, it's not deciding who qualifies, it's not an important game. I think you'll find that it is important for other reasons.
And I'm just going to say this: Scotland is not a dead cert to beat both Japan and Samoa. Right?
No,
definitely not. I think with a few months of time together since the Springbok game, I think Japan going to be a difficult nut to crack. Both teams, by the way, Scotland and Japan, play wonderful rugby. The style of rugby that they play is to be lauded, right? But if Japan can address some of their set-piece woes, because they were severely undone by the Springboks at both scrum and line-out. If they can address those two, they could beat Scotland. And similarly, Samoa. It just depends on how much cohesion and time together they've had as a squad, right? These days, with the professional rugby and the time that's put into these squads, it's unlikely to have a win based purely on passion like we saw in 91 when Samoa did so tremendously well and beat us, right, and got through the quarterfinal. You need to have the time to build cohesion, because that's certainly what Scotland has done, is build cohesion in their game plan. So it depends on how much time they've had together, how much funds they've had to actually spend time, the Samoan squad. But certainly there's talent there, you know. Whatever wasn't, you know, selected for Australia. Lia Liufano. That's not Maori, that's Samoan, right?
Oh yeah. He's not Maori. Yeah.
Okay, but that's not an Australian, sir.
No, it isn't. But one of the things I want to try and do, because everyone's been doing lots of different reviews of the World Cup, so people have probably heard a lot of these things over and over again. But one thing I'm going to think of trying to do is pull out one player who would be the biggest loss for each team.
Okay.
So not necessarily the best player, but the player where the gap between them and the next one is the biggest.
Sexton?
I'm going to go with Sexton because Joey Carberry's injured and coming into this one injured. And so Jack Carty with 7 caps is the next person. So I think for Ireland, yes, I would say at the moment it's Sexton because of that, because of Joey Carberry's injury. Would be a big loss for them, and is basically the most irreplaceable player.
Yes, I think it's tremendous. I also think, by the way, that that the South African-born flank from originally played for the Bulls, that plays for them, the one who ended Pat Lambie's, CJ Stander. There we go. Ended Pat Lambie's. Really ended his career at the very highest level. CJ Stander, I think, is also vital to that pack because he supplies an abrasiveness and a sheer physical knockabout presence that I don't think anybody else does.
Yep.
In when the going gets tough, and also they have that left wing, who really looks world class.
And that's Jacob Stockdale.
Yeah. He looks special.
He does. I'd also a man who's getting on a bit, but Rob Kearney. He was missing for that game that England played against Ireland in the Six Nations, and they were totally caught out of position in the backs. So I think he's also very important from that point of view. Having a quick look at Japan, and I must admit, I don't know this team as well, but
the captain,
Michael Leach,
a hot, yeah, and it's not necessarily only playing power and playing ability and skill. It's what they would call in New Zealand the mana, the presence, the leadership, the esteem that he's held in. I don't know if you've heard, even though he's a Waikato boy, Waikato, as they would say, the right pronunciation, how well he speaks Japanese. I think he's just an outstanding leader. And you can see the difference he makes when he plays Super Rugby for the Chiefs. He really adds something to the Chiefs squad and in each game that he plays. So I would probably say Michael Leach for the whole package.
Well, he's obviously with the Sunwolves nowadays. Has left the Chiefs, but yes, he did. Yeah, he would be my choice as well. Is that because his leadership is going to be absolutely key for them, especially when you look at things. I mean, amongst their props, they've only got one prop with double figures of international caps. Everyone else has not got. So there is inexperience in there that's going to really need to be held through this. For Russia, well, geez, I guess it is the fact that they're going to lose whoever they lose. So I'm not really sure there's anyone that's going to be key for them. But perhaps 109 cap Yuri Kushnevev, their fly half. Because if he hasn't got his kicking boots on, when they rarely get one of those penalties to get 3 points, that might be their only way to get 3 points.
Then Scotland.
Against Scotland. Yep.
I would say that fullback of theirs, who is absolutely, what's his Hogg? Yes, yep. He is special, very special. He is the one player that Scotland have that could, I think, legitimately challenge for the fullback position in any team that is going to the World Cup. He's the one player that you can look at in that Scotland squad who you would say, I have no question that Hogg, if he's fully fit, would make any squad that's going to the World Cup, at least make the squad, right? If not start, including the All Blacks, the Springboks, England, Ireland, whatever. He is very special, and he adds. He really is important for adding something that you can't plan for.
He is. Blake Kinghorn has played well at fullback as well. I think perhaps a player that I think they're very reliant on is someone like Hamish Watson in the back row. His ability at the breakdown to turn over the ball and also just get over the gain line. He's not the biggest player, but he plays with an awful lot of heart, and his low centre of gravity makes him really powerful as well. So Hamish Watson would be a player that I think they would miss if he gets injured a lot in that kind of role.
Can I ask you, why did they not select Hugh
Jones?
Hugh Jones. Has he had a tremendous fall off in form? Is he injured?
No, as far as I'm aware, he's not injured. It's not. It's definitely not down to that. I mean, two of his teammates, Peter Horn and Sam Johnson, both centres, both play for both play for Glasgow like he does, have got selected ahead of him, which is interesting. Chris Harris is in there from Gloucester and Duncan Taylor from Saracens. So I think there's been an element of waiting for Duncan Taylor to get fit and wanting him in there. I think that they wanted someone a bit more solid. Great attacking play, but not necessarily the most solid player defensively.
Well, I don't watch a lot of Scotland games, so let me just front up and say I haven't watched them over the last 2 years. But the games that I have seen them play, games against the All Blacks, games against Australia, and games against the Springboks in the last 2-3 years. Yep. And I'm not sure if I saw them against the Springboks, but certainly against Australia and against the All Blacks. Really, really good games, right? Where Scotland played very well. The two standout players for me were Hogg and Hugh Jones. They caused all sorts of trouble.
I think him or Issa, the number 8, who hasn't been selected for Argentina, are probably the two biggest sort of question marks as to selections of players who haven't been selected. For me, I know there's been talk around players like sort of Owen Franks or Devon Toner or Samson Lee or a few other these sort of people. But at the end of the day, Hugh Jones and Issa are the two that spring out as being why aren't those guys there? Because they are quality.
I agree.
Um,
Next,
last
Samoa.
one for Pool A is Samoa.
Yep.
And looking through that,
Got a beast of a number 8, an absolute beast. I saw him play against Tonga in this monsoon rain that they had, tropical rain, and he was tremendous deep into the second half. An absolute monster to try and curtail.
Jack Lamb or Chris Vui? Now,
well, maybe our listeners can help us out here.
Yeah, maybe you can help us out with who that one is. But yes,
but he looked amazing.
It's going to be their forwards, isn't it? Because we know that they'll have backs who can switch in and play really well. But what's going to be really important is players like Michael Alalatoa, who we know from they play for the Crusaders, Naua, the hooker, who plays for the Highlanders, and those front row and locks to give that platform for the guys. And I think the thing that really it looks good is that if we look at those type 5 players that have been selected, they're all playing in the Crusaders, Highlanders, Hurricanes, or in England, or in some in France as well. So we're talking about players who are used to playing, who are playing in proper packs and proper forward. There's only one player there who is unattached, who isn't from those places. So that looks sort of promising for them. But I think that they're keeping their first choice front 5 on the pitch is going to be crucial for Samoa.
And again, it comes down to that cohesion thing. How much time have they had together? How much funding has been available for them to train together and spend time we'll get onto the Springbok pool later, but it seems to me that a Springbok stole a march on everybody else except Japan was how long they've been in Japan. So, obviously that costs a lot of money to take your whole squad and all the trainers and everything and house them in Japan for 3 weeks before your first game. So, So anyway.
But moving on to Pool B, and in fact, South Africa have been there for an extra week longer than everyone else. Is there a chance of sort of cabin fever and just being away from family for too long and being in each other's back pockets too long possibly might happen?
I think that's a danger. I think it's more of a danger for let's get players who tend to a number of long tours, one after another, and certainly there isn't any more for players the length that we see now. You don't get these long tours anymore, which is a shame, because there was something special about the country district games and having touring sides going and playing in small towns and what that would do for rugby in the heartland of the various rugby nations. But I'm sure that they did an analysis of this and looked at what can we do to alleviate that cabin fever, as opposed to what's the best for us to be ready? What is the best for us to be acclimatized? What is the best for us to not only be over the jet lag, but also to be accustomed to the food, to be in a schedule, to be comfortable with where we are, to have things in place, to have our team ready. And obviously that's the decision that they took. Rather than stay in camp in South Africa, they decided to play that warm-up game again in Japan.
And then with that, for me, the most important player for the Springboks is going to be Pollard, because the step down from him to Elton Jantjies is massive in my mind.
Yes, I agree with you. He is probably the most physical first 5 in the competition. So he will. My prediction is that Richie Mo'unga better put his big boy pants on, because there's a lot of people going to be coming down that channel right?
Yep.
And there'll be a lot of big bodies coming down that channel, and Pollard will be one of them. So he's going to attack Mo'unga repeatedly, right? So he scored 2 tries against Argentina, and a couple of them were just sheer strength in breaking tackles close to the line. So he's probably the most physical of the fly halves or first fives at the tournament. I do think, though, and this is the interesting thing, I do think that the coaching staff of the Springboks have developed a faith in Jantjies as an impact player off the bench. So he adds something different. So what he does is he takes the ball to the line and gives short passes in different directions. So he's a different package to deal with when it comes to the final 20 minutes to changing the game. So he's used to
as a player who starts, though, I think he's someone you can pressurise and you can make him crumble.
Yes.
So I think you really would not want him starting the game.
Yes, I agree with you. I think Pollard is probably, I would say Pollard is the most important player that we have when we look at that squad. I'm just thinking there is so much. There are 5 world-class locks. There are lots of loose forwards. There are 2 full front rows, world-class front rows. There is maybe a bit of a gap between Faf de Klerk and Herschel Jantjies, mainly around experience, although there is something. Jantjies just has Herschel Jantjies now at 9.
Yep.
He has that magical stardust. It's just something about that kid, right?
They've also got Kobus Reinark there as well, who's also a decent 9.
Correct. But the reason why I bring up Elton Jantjies is 18 months ago, South Africans would have said, leave Pollard on. Don't take him off in the last 20. Don't. But they have built confidence. And Elton Jantjies is a complete confidence player, right? That really is why I think you're quite right. He can be pressurized. And they built him into really impactful impact player. And there's a lot of advantages across the Springbok bench to what they can bring off that bench when it comes to athletes and change of game plan.
Yep. For the All Blacks?
And
now I would say here that they've stood their hand here by taking him injured, which is Brodie Retallick.
Brodie Retallick, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Brodie Retallick. I think if anything happened to Beauden Barrett, there would be some consternation because if Richie Mo'unga, I have concerns about Richie Mo'unga, right? My concern is Richie Mo'unga has played with a dominant pack.
Yeah, Ollie Brown in the chat has said the exact same thing.
Yes, so here is a youngster who has played his entire professional career behind a dominant pack, and when he didn't play against this year, the 2 times I've seen him play when his pack has been on the back foot was the bad loss in Perth to Australia, and the draw against the Sharks in Christchurch, where his pack was getting beaten up, and he, as most fly halves do, didn't look half the player. Whereas Beauden Barrett did not play behind a dominant pack for the Hurricanes this year. Often they were, he was having to mop up bad ball. So but I agree with you. I think Brodie Retallick is the most important because it's not only what he brings in the set pieces and the loose, it's also what he gives in the midfield.
Yep, absolutely. And the other person, actually, I would say perhaps then is Sam Cane, because replacing him with a Todd or a Surveyor, they're a different style of player. Sam Cane just gets through so much work as well. Looking then, the other teams here in that side is we've got Canada. Canada, it's fair that Tyler Ardron is their class player by a country mile. He would be he'd be impossible to replace. Another name that jumps out is also DTH Vandermeer, but at 33 for a winger. I'm not sure if he's still the same as we've seen in the past. But yeah, Tyler Aldron is going to be would be a massive loss for them. Italy, in years gone by, you'd say Sergio Paresi, but let's be honest, he's nowhere near the player he used to be. He's 36 now. And so it might be someone like.
He is.
Sorry?
I would just say he is. He remains all first team spouse though. If you want to start looking at the spouses, he's all first team. Good on him.
Dear. But Tommaso Allen is obviously going to be running the show for them, so that's he's important. But at the end of the day, for me, I think actually Italy's biggest problem is going to be motion. They know they're not going to beat the All Blacks or South Africa. They're not close. And then Canada and Namibia aren't much opposition either. So whilst they have to get that third place to get automatic qualification for next year, it's kind of like, well, what's in it for them? They've got the two weakest teams in the competition. Perhaps you'd argue Russia is, but the two lowest ranked teams in the world rankings to play against. If they lose to either of those, obviously they're next on the block. But if they win, well, everyone expects them to win. So yeah, I think motivation might be the biggest problem for Italy. And then, yes, I'm not sure about Namibia.
You're trying so hard.
I am. I'm trying for Namibia, but this. But yeah, sorry, but no, I can't at this stage. I'm out of this. This is scraping the bottle of my. But hey, they've got a player from Jersey Reds who just beat Russia, so hey, that must be good.
What about, does their player from Saracen still play? Saracen. So that's the only one that I knew.
He's retired.
Okay, so I don't even have him. So,
what, you're watching the Namibian the Cup Championship or the Vodacom Super Sports League earlier this year?
No, I haven't.
Dear. That's B. Moving on to, before we actually, I would just like to say tomorrow I'm heading over to these guys, Good George Brewery, who have kindly going to give me some beer to watch the rugby. Mm-hmm. So check out their black IPA. Arshwin and I had a one of those watching the Mitre 10 Cup last weekend, and that was one I bought. And hopefully they're going to give me a couple of those for free to drink while I watch All Blacks games. So there's my recommendation.
You're going to bring a few of those around today.
I will see. Yes, I will have to bring at least one around on Saturday.
Listen to him. Can you believe this?
I've got to see how many I get given first.
Can you believe? I'll bring one around. He says. Promise. Hey.
Oh dear. So on to Pool C. Argentina. Now,
it's a good question. That's a very good question. I think it must be their captain and blindside flank Pablo Matera.
Yeah, I mean, he is a player he's someone that I remember tweeting out earlier in the year saying that this is a player that Steve Hansen wish he had available.
Yes. No, he's special.
He is special.
But they have a bunch of special players. They've got a very good back three. They really do. Both wings and fullback are really good.
Well, I would actually say because we were talking drop off. If you think the back three, they can choose from Moyano, Delgi, Carreras, Boffelli, Tucalet. They've got 5 guys there who can all do a job.
And they're all good. All good.
They're all good. If they lose a guy there, it's not a problem. Maybe one of the areas that they have had a problem with has been their scrummaging. Yes. So Figalo, who's over from Saracens, who's one of the few overseas players they've selected, I think could be kind of key as well, because
lucid, right?
their scrum is a problem.
He's lucid, right, Figalo?
I think so.
Figalo.
And actually, we're going to jump straight to France because I think it's Argentina and France for second place in this one. Sorry?
Let me just say, before we go any further,
Yep.
my favorite anthem in the rugby world is the
Oh,
Argentine anthem. It thrills my heart every time I hear it. Dun, dun, dun,
now
dun,
it's
and
it's good. Apart from the fact it takes about 5 minutes of intro before it gets going.
that's what I like. Because you think it's finished and nobody was singing. And then the intro finishes and it dies off. You think it's over and then everybody starts singing. It's fantastic. I love it. I kill myself laughing every time it happens.
Oh dear. No. So yes. So that is. Oh geez. No. That's. I enjoy it, but it's just that intro just takes forever.
Any national anthem where the intro is 3 times longer than the part they sing. I just gotta give kudos to that. You know. Da 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 da. Anyway, we've done Argentina. What about England?
I was going to go on to France because I think it's between Argentina and France for that second place in the
Who
pool.
do you think is France's most important player?
I'm going to go for Sebastian Vahamahina on the grounds that they've only selected 2 locks. The other lock is banned for the.
Only 2 locks?
Yes. They've only taken 2 locks. One of them is banned for the opening game as well.
So including the banned one, they have 2 locks?
Correct.
So the first match they will play with 1 out-and-out lock and 1 utility player at lock?
Correct.
Only the French. Only the French. I mean, you look at that and you go, yeah, only the French.
WTF? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, only in France would Bastereau have become captain, right?
Well, at least he's not going.
Yeah, but I'm saying any other team in the world, any other country in the world, they would have said to him, mate, if you don't get your body fat down to 10%, you're not going to the national team, right?
Yep.
Because you've got an example. But in France, they make him captain. And let me tell you, there is an unfulfilled talent. But if he got profit, he could have been the best rugby player in the world. But we'll never know because he never got himself properly fit.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm sure he had a good time.
So I think he had a very good time. So yeah, so that's my most important player for the French.
Don't you think so?
Sorry?
I said I'm sure Bastereau was all first team hotel bar.
I don't know. Is he or did he just love dessert? Maybe just puddings, lots of desserts, puddings. Just gets down to that boulangerie. Actually, no, the patisserie, and it's just cream and flaky pastry, and just went mad in those French patisseries. That's Bastereau.
Look, I would guess that Bastereau really liked dessert, without question, and I'm quite sure he was also fond of pudding.
Of what?
Of pudding.
Oh, pudding. Oh, yes, pudding. Absolutely.
Anyway, moving on. Who's this? So they're a single starting lock for the first game. You think is their key player?
Absolutely. If they lose him, then they really are.
If you've only got 2 locks in the squad, who's come off the bench? I don't know. Oh, the French. You just don't. Just to shake your head. Right.
I'm sure some of the back rows can play lock, but and against Argentina they'll be fine in the scrum, but at line out they could really get found out. Yes. Because the Argentinians have got a serious line out, and they could get found out there. So that could be a real problem for them.
Now England.
Owen Farrell, captain, goal kicker, fly half,
walking yellow card.
Walking yellow card, maybe, but he is he's the heart and soul of that team. But good point by Stacey English in the chat about Billy Vanapola, because he just gets them over the gain line like nobody else does.
Is he going to be playing at 8?
He'll be playing at 8, yes.
Yeah.
So those two are.
Yeah, I would differ with you.
Okay. Who do you think is important?
I think it's Tuilangi. I really do. Because I think he changes the entire complexion of how you defend against England if they're playing Tuilangi. So England changes more than any other player, I think, when Tuilangi is in versus when he's out. So he'd be my vote.
I think one of the things about England is that if they get injuries and have to change players, it changes game plan more than any other team. Other teams, you put another player in and they do a similar job to somebody else. With England, if you take out Manu Tuilangi, you put in Henry Slade.
Yeah, it's completely different.
Absolutely different. Or you put in Jonathan Joseph. Again, a different type of player again. You've got 3 totally different third teams there.
But I think I'm thinking as a team that's facing them, right?
Yeah.
I don't think after those other 2, you're going to go to bed at night thinking, "Oh, we better make a plan for them," right?
No, you change how you defend because against Henry Slade, you make sure you've got an extra person back to cover the kick through because that's what he's going to do. Against Jonathan Joseph, you bring that defender up because he's going to skin your player on the outside. So, I agree. You're not sleepless, but it does change. But it is you would change the system.
I don't have a concern that our line is going to be pierced one way or another, right? The strong defenses, and I think that's what Tuilangi brings. He brings a penetrative and offloading threat, right? Anyway, that's my opinion.
I agree, and I think players like him, and there's 2 other players I'd throw into that same bracket. Someone like a David Pocock, somebody like a Israel Folau. When you're playing against them, they are so good at one thing they do that you have to change your game plan for them.
Yes.
If you're playing against Israel Folau, you have to change your kicking game plan. If you're playing against David Pocock, you have to change your rucking game plan. And there are very, very few players in the world that are that good at one thing that alter how the opposition have to play.
Well, you'll see when the teams play against England, you'll see that the ball carrier will look for Pocock, and the first ball carrier will look for Pocock and run at him, and make him commit to a tackle and get him on the ground, so that they will try as far as possible to commit him to the ruck, to the ground, to the tackle. So continually try and take him out of the game. Yes. Anyway, so we differ on those 2. What about the other teams in that pool?
Samoa, and I'm just scanning it down here, and there's no one that jumps. Oh, maybe. Now it's going to be, the problem is he's been playing for Racing, so he's probably put on a few kgs. But Ben Tamiafuna, the prop. When he was playing for the Chiefs, if he was 5 meters out, he'd always score a try because he's just so powerful, pick and go. But the problem is he's playing in France, and France just doesn't do fitness. So it's going to depend on how fit he is.
Yes. Oh, he was earmarked for the All Blacks. He really was. And then he just didn't have the required dedication, but he had the talent.
Yep. A few other players on the place. Steve Mafiev, but I think he's getting on. I think he's as good as he used to be at lock. And perhaps someone like Kurt Morath actually, first 5'8", as somebody who actually just is the sensible player in the backs, who lets everyone else do the crazy stuff off him.
Yeah. I was very disappointed with their tackling against the All Blacks. Tonga were famed for the full-hearted tackling that they brought to the game.
Yep.
And I don't know if they were awed by playing the All Blacks. I don't know if they didn't want to injure the All Blacks. but if they are switched on, they can cause some hurt bodies at least.
They can. I'm really a bit worried about the age of their backs. So they're half-back. So the scrum halves, 31, 25, 28. Not too bad. Fly halves, 25 and 34. Centres, 27, 33, 30.
The captain is 33, right?
Yeah, he's 33, yeah. Wingers, 26, 30, 32, 32, 28. That's old for back three players. It's a bit of an aging back line, unfortunately.
And the final team in that group of it all?
The USA. AJ McGinty.
What's that?
AJ McGinty at fly half.
AJ McGinty. Okay. Yeah. Sleeping giant.
Sorry?
A sleeping giant, the USA.
Yes, and now the big thing about them is, and now whilst I've got a couple of unattached players, they have got a fully professional side for the first time ever. So fitness is there. The problem is they're coming up against 3 Tier 1 teams, which means they're going to struggle, unfortunately.
And how many of their 7 squad made themselves available?
So they've got Sophia in the backs, and then they've also got Ben Pinkelman as anchor. So they've got 2.
Good player. It's a pity that you get the man with the wheels. What's his name?
Stick.
Yes, both of them actually. They've got 2 real speed merchants.
So you've got Carlin Isles, who's the short one, who has tried 15s and didn't. He played for Glasgow for a bit, but never actually got a start. Then I've gone blank. So the guy's name.
Kerry Baker.
Kerry Baker. That's it. Yep.
Kerry Baker. Yeah. Okay. What's the next one that we're going to do? What's the next pool?
Pool D, the final pool. We're on to the final one. Australia. Who is their key man?
Look, I think that it's Michael Hooper. Because
really?
I think, because of his whole package, I think Michael Hooper is a world-class player. I think Michael Hooper would probably make most squads going to the World Cup. He might not start. I think he'd make most squads, but I think he provides them with leadership. And if Pocock is available to lead, maybe. But Pocock's knees are dodgy, right? And he's, of course, retiring at the end of this World Cup. And I'm pretty sure that's got to do with his body just can't take it anymore.
I think he's playing in Japan, but yes, he retired from international rugby at the end of this World Cup.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, on that topic, if you see the size of Pocock, just the sheer tankness of him, right? And you consider how much damage he's taken playing that position, it makes George Smith all the more wondrous.
Yeah.
When you think of the amount of times that George Smith was smashed in ways that are no longer legal, by the way, the way he was, people climbed into him like Bucky's Botha and a plethora of other locks and tight forwards that hit him with their shoulder and no arms and drove him out in that vulnerable position, crouched down with his head down, and he would just come sometimes flying out of a ruck like an ejected popcorn kernel, right? And he would just bounce up to his feet like a rubber ball and be back in there. So, anyway, as an aside, George Smith, truly one of the great rugby players of the last 50 years and vastly underrated. But getting back to
it didn't help just bit off Japan where you don't really see him. That was part of it as well for quite a few years.
Yes. And also played in France, didn't he? Or England?
He played a bit in England as well, yes.
That's right. So certainly I would say it's between Pocock and Hooper for their world-class players.
When we look at the pool they're in, they've got Wales, Fiji, Georgia, and Uruguay. Forget Uruguay. But against Georgia, they're going as a pack. Against Fiji, they're going to want to keep it tight and make it a set-piece affair, not a free-flowing affair. So with those things in mind, I think players like Rory Arnold, the lock, who is so disruptive in the line out and the maul. He would be very difficult to replace. And maybe Issa Nazarani for his ability to get over the ball. I think we've seen, looking at this pool and with those sort of teams they've got to play against, we have seen Australia pick a much bigger pack than they've done previously, rather than mobile pack. And I think those big boys are perhaps the important players for Australia.
I don't fully buy into your thing about the turnaround in Australian rugby.
Okay.
And I'll explain why. They were very poor in Super Rugby, their teams. They had one great win against the All. They had a strong showing against Argentina in Australia, where, to be honest, Argentina didn't look like they really pitched up at all. And then they were absolutely murdered in the forwards by the Springboks and taken out behind the bicycle shed and spanked by the All Blacks, right?
And they led to a pretty laboured win over Samoa, to be honest.
Yes. So, one swallow does summer make. One great win over the All Blacks. I don't know. It is not that long ago that they were struggling, really, really struggling. And if you get in among them, in among the forwards, and you get stuck into their forwards, which is what Ireland is going to do, and England, and all of these teams are going to get in among them, among the forwards, that's where their weakness is. They've got a very good...
I'll be honest, I can't see them going past the quarterfinals. But I think they've improved enough to get past Fiji. Whereas previously I didn't think they were going to get past Fiji.
Who is their projected quarterfinal matchup?
England.
They won't survive that. England will just come at them in waves, which is a pity because their backline play is really smart. They've got some, or as the Australians would say, it's really smart.
But when I say they've improved, it's that they've improved to beat Fiji rather than they've actually improved enough to go past the quarterfinals. So Fiji is the team they're going to be. To be honest, I'm sure as to who their best and the most important player. What does disappoint me is that they have no players based out of New Zealand in this Fiji team. They're all based off. They're all based out of Europe, pretty much.
Well, you probably find the ones that are based in New Zealand still have making for a New Zealand team. You know, for all my joking about Australia picking, it's certainly something that Ben does as well.
So I'm just down this list and trying to figure out who would be. I can't pick who's the most important player, to be honest.
Their captain is quite talismanic.
Domenico is his first name, and his second name, Wow.
No, go for it, mate. Go for it. Let's see.
Wakane Ibruto? Sorry, folks.
Yes. Just let the pop butcher the name. There we go.
There we go.
But he's talismanic for them. So there's argument to be made from that perspective. But also, you know, with Fiji, if they're going to upset anybody, not only do their forwards need to secure them first phase ball, but they need to have very smart halfback and first halfback and scrum fly half. Right? How they set that backline away is very important.
Yeah, no, you're right, it is. So Matawala and Vola, who are probably going to be the starting two.
Yes.
There. On to Georgia. Now, Gorgodze. Sorry?
You know what? I can tell you straight away.
Yep.
That their most important player, his name ends with Vili.
I was going to mention that Gorgodze has been persuaded to come back and play for the team.
Wow.
By the Prime Minister, George. So he's going to come back. Look, let's be honest. For them, it's going to come down to their pack is fantastic, and they can lose anyone in their pack and they're replaced by another fantastic player. That's going to be absolutely fine. The problem is, if you look at their backs, most of them are playing amateur rugby in Georgia, and so it's going to come down to quite how well Tito, who is the fly half who plays for Breve, marches them around the pitch. Put bluntly. Luckily that he's got Vasily, and I'm using their first names, not their second names, because it's much easier, who also plays at Breve as his scrum half. So between the two of them, they play a lot together. They're 22 and 20, but they're going to be the people that are going to be really important for this side.
Is that the last team?
No, and then we have Uruguay and Wales. Uruguay, let's be honest, haven't got a clue.
Yeah, I'm with you.
There's a couple of players I might recognise out of Major League Rugby, but if they're out of Major League Rugby, wow, they're already in trouble.
Yes. Wales.
Most
important player.
Now, they've lost two players already. Obviously, Gareth Anscombe and Talupe Faletau.
The great Welsh name there, Faletau.
I stay English says, Alwyn Jones for his leadership.
Probably.
Yep.
Probably. With the most famous ear in rugby. Well, most famous current ear in rugby.
Current ear in rugby, yes.
Ear in current rugby, I don't know. Yeah, probably.
I mean, they've got a couple of other important players. Obviously, as you've lost Anscombe, you've got Bigger and Reece Pratchell. Now, Reece Pratchell could step up and suddenly find his form again and become first choice like he was a couple of years ago. But he's still got to do it. You've got players like Jonathan Davis, multiple British and Irish Lion, who's fantastic for them as well. He's very difficult to replace. Their strength is around their loose forwards, is they could quite happily lose a couple of those and still have a very good loose forward trio. So even though they've got good players there, there's no point in naming them because, as I say, they've got really good players to replace them. And when you've got players like Halfpenny and Williams both trying to get that 15 jersey, they've got depth in those places, in those areas.
See, they are a team. I know people think of them as maybe somebody who can win the World Cup. The thing that predisposes them to not make it is they don't have enough weapons, sheer out and out strike weapons, right? So, I mean, they could really do with somebody like Hogg in the back line, right?
Well, I mean, Liam Williams is kind of a similar kind of player.
But Hogg doesn't just bring speed. Hogg brings creativity. That's what's so impressive about Hogg is it's not just athletic. He is amazingly quick and nimble and balanced for somebody who doesn't look like like he doesn't look as athletic as he turns out to be. But it's more than that. It's the nous and the creativity and the speed of thought and the skill that he brings, right? To break open a defense. And Gareth Davies is obviously I did get that right. Am I mixing up my Welsh errors here?
Gareth Davies is scrum half, so no, probably mixing it up here.
30.
Jonathan Davis.
Jonathan Davis. Sorry, when you're talking about the Welsh, you mix your Edwards up with your Davies, with your yes, and Jones, right? Edwards, Davis, and Jones. Pick a Welsh player, right? Davis will us, but maybe along in the tooth to quite have this mercurial. I hate to use that overused term, fast twitch response, but yes, that blinding acceleration. But it's those absolute game breakers that can turn from there being no right to score into points. which is why the loss of Israel Folau is so huge for Australia, where they can get points where there should be nothing on, but these world-class, brilliant players create something. And my concern for Wales is they don't really have that in the back line, right? They're solid, they're well coached, they're well drilled. They just don't quite have that Odin Barrett, or you mentioned him, the wing for Ireland.
Stockdale.
Stockdale just seems to be able to score, right? Just snips the tryout, right?
Now, I mean, Wales are Six Nations champions, but there were Six Nations champions having scored the fewest tries in the Six Nations. It was built purely on defence.
Yeah.
I mean, they scored less tries in Italy.
Here we go. That's not going to cut it in three. That's not going to cut it in 3 major matches against teams that are going to come at them. Like, they're probably going to face at least 2. Probably, I mean, the chances are high they'll face 2 Southern Hemisphere teams, right? To win the World Cup. And those Southern Hemisphere teams will come at them in 5s and 7s.
Yep. And the other thing that's playing against them is, let's look at the conditions they're going to be playing in. It's going to be hot and draining. Now, both sides have to do that, but if you are giving the ball away and saying, we trust our defence, that's very tiring. It's much more tiring to be defending than it is to be attacking. And so I think that's their game plan perhaps isn't fit for the type of weather we're going to get.
Well, you see, this is, by the way, something I forgot about when we were talking about the Springboks getting there a week earlier than anybody else. They have deliberately trained in the middle of the day in the heat to acclimatize to that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, that's certainly going to have an effect when it comes to the tournament. It's the heat. And we saw that even in a night game when they played Japan, just how wet the players' jerseys were. It looked like it was raining, but it was just pure humidity and perspiration, right? So, yeah, that's my concern for Wales is out-and-out game breakers, like Tuilalangi. They can break down the defence, like Bowden Barrett.
So 4 years ago, George North, I mean, I know he's only 27, but yeah, he's not the player he used to be.
He's not the player. And with the terrible concussions that I've seen, and I don't even see a tenth of the games that he plays. Just the ones that I probably see 5% less of the games that he plays.
Yep.
And I've seen terrible concussions there. It's not surprising,
Very true. So there you go, folks. We've told you who we think is the most important player in every single team across the Rugby World Cup, even if we don't know anybody from Namibia. And kind of remember, that third place in the pool is very important for a lot of teams. And so don't think games that aren't involving the top 2 are not important. Now, this weekend we talked. Sorry,
this weekend, are you gonna make some bold predictions here?
So I have made bold predictions, and I've gone with all the favourites. My predictions are available on DrivingMaul.com.
Okay. Give them to us quickly.
Sorry?
Give them to us quickly.
Oh, geez, I've got to dig it out now. So Japan will thrash Russia by about 30 odd points. I'm expecting a narrow win for Australia over Fiji. France to beat Argentina by about 7. New Zealand to beat South Africa by 7, which John will disagree with. Moving on into Sunday, what have we got? We've got Ireland beating Scotland.
Whoa. Rewind.
Yep.
I reserve a reply.
Okay, go on.
Japan, yes. Second game was Fiji, Australia.
Yes.
Oh, I'd love to say Fiji. I mean, all the romantics. I think all the rugby fans who are not Australians, we want Fiji to win. But yeah, you probably have to go with Fiji, right?
Australia.
But that's the Freudian slip with
Yep.
Australia.
I've got Australia by 3, but you're right. I would love Fiji to win that one.
I've got Argentina over France.
Okay. I've got France over Argentina, so we'll see. Yep.
Okay. The smart money would be with the All Blacks. I agree with you. If I was going to put money down, it would be on the All Blacks, because I suspect that there's something going to be unfurled game plan wise that's going to make us sit up on Saturday evening and go, what is that Shag Hansen is doing here? But I just sense the Springbok team is something about them. It's just something about them. And of all the teams in the World Cup, I think they're the ones who who have the sense of belief most within that squad that they can beat the All Blacks. My prediction is I think the Springboks will win by 3. And I think it's a dress rehearsal for the final.
A lot of people are saying that. I really want to have one Northern Hemisphere team in the final.
Of course you do.
Because, I don't want it to just be another 2 Southern Hemisphere teams. Because we've had that sort of too frequently, personally. Anyway, so...
it's all they're playing rugby in slushy, muddy, freezing cold, sleet, rain, snow, winter. It's all working so well for the Northern Hemisphere rugby, isn't it?
Absolutely. Italy will beat Namibia by about 15, I've said.
Agreed. By 15. I think it'll be more than that.
Maybe.
25.
25? Okay.
25. Yeah. 35. 25 to 35.
25 to 35, okay. Ireland to beat Scotland by 7.
Yes. Oh, I think you're being generous to the Scots.
Possibly. England to beat Tonga by about 15.
Oh, no, I think it'll be bigger than that.
Again, I'm being generous. And then Wales to beat Georgia by about 15, and that's on Monday.
Wales to beat Georgia by 25. England to beat Tonga by 30, 35. But yes, our only differences there are Argentina and France.
Yep.
And
heart overhead, really.
What's that?
And heart overhead.
Yes, I think I've gone a little bit more with my heart than my head there when it comes to the box. But I think Argentina are my dark horse in this World Cup. Argentina are my dark horse.
They just don't have the pack for it for me, or the scrum for it in particular. That's my problem.
Let us see.
We will see. Now, everybody, don't forget to subscribe and also get the bell on. So you get notified when we go live. So we'll be going live definitely after the New Zealand versus South Africa on Saturday. I'll probably also go live after Japan versus Russia on Friday, just because it's the first game of the Rugby World Cup, and we might squeeze a few more in there as well. So stick around for that. Tomorrow night I'll have the All Blacks edition with Michael and Steve, and we'll be talking about that as well. Stacey keeps wanting me to tell David that if I don't see him on here again, see you in the final. Stacey English, so England versus and do you mean David or do you mean the other guy on screen who's John, which is I think that's who you actually mean, Stacey.
Stacey.
And that means so that's so you reckon England South Africa final? Well, we will see. It could be
New Zealand South Africa final.
I know that's what you're expecting, but yes. I think Stacey's suggesting an England South Africa final.
By the way, I know we were talking about the importance of the third place games. Let us just emphasize before we go the importance of that Springbok All Black game, right? And that is if you win that game, your projected quarterfinal opponent is Scotland,
yep.
Right, or Japan. If you lose that game, your projected quarterfinal opponent is Ireland. So even if you beat Ireland, even if, let's say, the Springboks lose, and they play Ireland in the quarterfinal. Even if they beat Ireland, they then probably have to face
Wales,
right? And then they would, if they make it through to the final, they end up playing New Zealand, let's say, again. As opposed to the other side of the draw, they would play probably, let's say, Scotland or Japan. After that, who was their projected opponent? England.
Yep, or Australia.
And if they win that, then they play the final. So the path, you have a much easier quarterfinal. So not only is your chances much higher of winning that game, but the strain on your squad for 3 weeks is reduced because the first game is not so heavy. So if you are comfortably pulling away from Scotland, and greatest of respect to Scotland, I think they play wonderful rugby. I think they're an exemplar of the style of rugby that could be played in the Northern Hemisphere. And I wish more Northern Hemisphere teams played rugby the way Scotland does. But they don't have the athletes that some of the other teams, and they don't have the size and the bulk of some of the other teams. So if you are comfortably, with 30 minutes to go, 20 points ahead of Scotland, you bring a raft of substitutes on, and you give as much rest as possible to your first choice. And that makes the semi-final and the final that much easier for them to handle. So there's a knock-on effect that is enormous, not only in the chances of winning quarterfinal, you a better chance of beating Scotland or Japan versus Ireland, but also the knock-on effect of where come the final, right? So there is Kitch Christie coined the phrase, the high road and the low road to the final in 95. And prior to the opening game against Australia, he kept on saying, this is the most important game. This game is the most important game because if we win against Australia, we take the high road. And very much the winner of that match on Saturday takes the high road when it comes to the final.
Absolutely. By the way, for everyone else, I've not said it yet, I think it's New Zealand, Ireland for the final. There we go. New Zealand, Ireland is who I think is going to make the final.
Okay.
There we go. Right then, thank you everybody. It's been a blast as usual, and as usual with John, we've overrun, which is great. It's always fun talking with John. Hey. Thank you very much. And I will talk to you again I'll see you in person on Saturday, and we might be broadcasting from your flat on Saturday as well. So thank you everybody. It's obviously Rugby World Cup's nearly here. Do become a supporter of the channel. Link in the notes below. Patreon.com/DrivingMaul, and you'll get exclusive access to videos such as which games to make sure in your calendar from the group stages. A look at a DrivingMaul look at the pools, where I look at a whole bunch of stats. And what else? Oh yes, the 5 teams that could win the Rugby World Cup, and the 3 games with the biggest chance of upsets as well. So all those videos are there. So go and become a supporter. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, and get the IPA.
I won't forget the IPA, the black IPA even.